Thanks for spending some time with material management software today. Today's video is going to be focused on importing prices and how I can take a look at the prices across different vendors and different manufacturers using cross references. So I can import pricing from a vendor, and that way I can compare prices for requisitions or for estimates. I can generate my bids and quotes. I can take a look at my pricing. I can also do historical pricing, and I can compare it to the negotiated pricing that I get as a price sheet. And then I can place my order. Most people are going to have the generic price list. And this is just a sample generic price list from any vendor. This is about the minimum amount of information that you're going to need. There are other price lists that are going to have a lot more stuff in it, and we'll have to pick and choose what we want to include as far as the price file. So let's jump right into it. Let's take a look here. If I want to import a price file, I'm going to import vendor pricing. If I've created a template, I can use the template. So in this case right here, I've created a template already, but if I wanted to create a new template, I can put in a name, create a new template, and I can find the file name of the one that I want. Now I'm just going to use this one right here. I've identified it. I'm going to go pick my particular file that I need. Here's my generic price file. And I'm going to go ahead and read that in. While this is reading in, I want you to note a few things here. I am going to have a header row in there. I'm going to replace existing pricing, or I can update the existing pricing. I'm going to use my price. Those of you that are using discount percentages, that's not common in the industry anymore. List price is kind of a meaningless thing these days, and it's all about the special pricing agreement that the distributor gets from the manufacturer and what they pass on to you. The margins are really tight in the business, so most of them will, instead of giving you a blanket discount percentage, they're going to tell you a particular price. We want to match this by UPC. We want to match this by carriage return line feed. Now we are going to have to map the data in. So once we've loaded in our Excel spreadsheet, we're going to have to map that data in. Important safety tip on the spreadsheets. Depending on what version of Power Purchase you're in, you may have to down convert the file from an XLSX down to an Excel 97 2000 workbook. Again, depending on the type of or the version of Power Purchase that you're on, you may need to down convert it, or just down convert it to make it simple, because in the newer versions of Excel, there's a lot of extraneous stuff that's in there. So important safety tip there. If it's not working the way that you expect it to be working, there's a very high likelihood that it's because it's in a newer version of Excel and your version of Power Purchase hasn't been updated in a while. Now, next, we're going to go in here to Excel, and I'm going to go pick on this particular tab right here. So I'm going to import this worksheet, and then I'm going to create the configuration for the worksheet. Now, my match code location, this is sort of a logic issue right here, but we want to use the UPC because we're telling it on the other screen, we're telling it to use the UPC. So this is the match code. So I'm going to import the UPC. I'm going to, my price location is in column 4. So starting column, ending column. The unit of measurement is 3 and 3. Now, I don't have a header in here. On this other tab, I have a header here. If I was using that tab, I would put my header in row 1. So that would be 1 and 1. And if it's down further, let's say it's in the header's in row 6, then I would start it at row 6. This is the same logic that we apply for bringing in an estimate or a requisition. So if I click View Record, I can see, I have some records. That's great. All right, now we can go ahead and do our import. So it's importing that vendor pricing. Again, I only did a limited number of items so that this would go quickly. If you have a 65 or 75,000 line one, like this particular one, this particular price file is 65,000 lines. It's going to take a minute to bring all of that in, and especially if you're doing a whole lot of them. So now we've imported that, and again, just make sure your screen looks pretty much like this screen right here. Follow through with this Excel process, and you can make sure import worksheet is there, and then you can show the worksheet configuration. I'm going to go ahead and hide it again, but make sure that's the one you need. Now, the next step in all of this is go to File, Maintenance, Utilities. This is an important step. Gosh, guys, I forget this all the time too. I don't do this every day like some of you guys do. And so I'll forget. And so I'm going to go and I'm going to make sure that all of those prices are updated. And because I was using Olson, I'm going to go ahead and search that. Here are all of the prices that I've got. We've got a fixed price in there, and I'm not using a discount percentage. All right, next thing is, oops, let's go in and let's add some items from that. So let's go ahead, and I'm actually going to I'm going to bring in, let's say, an estimate. So you guys get a twofer on this one, because I'll bring in an estimate, and then I'll show you how you can create an estimate and then use that estimate for price comparison purposes. So I'm going to bring in an estimate. Let's do a test rec import. Let's try this guy. I'm going to use, go back here to my desktop. I'm just going to import some stuff off of here, because that way I know that I've got some stuff. My estimate that I'm going to bring in here, I'm going to use it for job 1000. And again, I'm going to go through and do, I'm going to configure this as well. Now, some of you guys, you're going to have a generic template that looks like this. This is about the simplest material request form that you can use. And if you notice in line 19 right here, this is where my header information is. And here are all of the items that I've picked. If you're using something like this, this same process is going to work exactly the same for you. So once you've imported that in, and again, I'm using a particularly big file, and so it's taking a couple of minutes to upload in there, but the net is that it's going to come in. One other important safety tip while doing the vendor pricing: cross-references, guys. Cross-references, material management gives you like 50 or 60,000 cross-references right out of the gate. And I'll show you how to identify cross-references in the material management data. But you do have access to other cross-reference sources. This happens to be trade service. And so we've got these multiple UPC codes here and all of these different products. This is the generic trade service UPC. And then here are 4 different manufacturers of this particular product set. And so you can see that these 5 UPCs are functionally equivalent. If you're not getting, say, vendor Gray Bar, vendor North Coast, vendor CED, it's because their items haven't been cross-referenced. Sometimes distributors make this really difficult. Why would they make it difficult? Well, because they don't want you to cross-shop based on price. That being aside, you can create these cross-references, and we can help you do that. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna change that to be 1. And now let's go in here and I'm gonna match. Well, first I'm gonna give it against job 1000. I'm gonna match based on the number, match based on the UPC, carriage line return, and I'm gonna create a new estimate with each one. Basically, guys, just make it look like I have it here on the screen. You're probably not gonna go wrong. Now I'm gonna import on this right on tab 2 here because it's a smaller set. And so I'm gonna go ahead and configure. So my header row is, actually this one doesn't have a header row. My item code location is 1. My price location is 4. Unit of measurement is 3, 3. I'm not bringing in a quantity here. Description location is 2. My UPC location is 1. I know that I'm putting that in there a couple of different times. If I have more information, I can bring that more information. Now let's go ahead and view record. Oops, it didn't like something that I did. And let's go see what it didn't like. So I got 1, I've got number, UPC code. I'm using my sheet right there. I've got that there. And I've got all my items there. Okay, well, we'll just say header row is 1 just for the sake of argument there. Okay, so let's make sure I don't have any. Okay, so it was importing more than from more than one sheet. Okay, so view record. There we go. I've got my records. So again, it can be a little complicated right there, but when it throws you little error messages, you can kind of logic through. Again, we can help you in real time. So I'm going to go ahead and import this guy. So he's going to import this and he's going to create an estimate. You can also bring in field information, and there's a whole discipline around what you can do with estimates, and we'll actually do that in a separate video right here. I'm just going to do this for illustration purposes so that we can see that we're going to have two different vendors with the same prices, or sorry, two different vendors with potentially different prices with the same UPC code, and you can see the value and the benefit of that cross history data. Now, if I wanted to see the individual cross references, I can go to any of the lines in here. I can right mouse click and go to edit item detail. And I can see the potential cross references of the items that are in there. And I'll show that here in just a moment once this process completes out. But now I have created we'll get out of this. I've created an estimate with all of the items that I was looking for. Now, let's go back in here though, and let's look at some of these cross-reference things. Right mouse click, edit item detail. You see all of these items that are cross-referenceable? You see how it matches in with what trade service is doing right there? That tells me that for that product, all of these products are to be compared. That's important. Let's get back into our estimate here. Here's why that's important. I can go to price compare, and I can set the information that I want to do. So I'm going to select my vendors. I'm going to use Olson Elevator and Waste Management. I'm going to go to my pricing. I'm going to check for UPC match, commodity code, manufacturer, use material cross-reference. So if there are cross-references, it's going to cross-reference those particular product sets. And the most important one is do not use the DB column 3 price. Use the prices that are in here. From a view perspective, I don't need to worry about view. Now I can run this. So this is going to go through and it's going to find the best price based on the UPC, based on what we've got. And we're going to be able to see this by comparing it back to this. So here was the original list. Let's grab this one. So here's the original list. Actually, I think it was this one that we had brought in. So anyway, we've got our generic price list right there, and we'll be able to see these same prices show up here in our price comparison. Now I've got several hundred items in there that I'm working through. So it's going to take it a moment because I've got hundreds of items in there, and ultimately it's going to price all of them. But you can see here that it's got Waste Management, it's got Olson Elevator, and it's going through and it's comparing each and every one. Now, once that completes, I can see that I have some prices for some things and not for other things. So for example, I've got Waste Management versus Olson Elevator. They're the same, probably because I loaded in the same price file just to have some comparisons, but some items don't have prices. Why wouldn't it have a price? One, the vendor doesn't have that product. They're not, say, a Square D distributor. They don't carry Rayco. They just carry Steel City. That's one reason. The second reason is that I don't have a cross-referenceable product from that particular vendor. So that means either I have to define the cross-reference, or I'm going to have to go in here and find the cross-reference and create the cross-reference table. Again, we'll talk about cross-references in another example, but that's the importance of the cross-references. So now I have all of my prices, and I can go along here and I can say, hey, yep, you know what, for all of these items in this particular estimate right here, I really think that Olson Elevator is the one to use because I don't have that, or I don't have all that. So I can highlight all of my lines. I can go here, right mouse click, and I can select use all. So now I'm going to use all of these and I'm going to apply all items and prices. So I'm going to apply that. And now when I go back to my main tab, I'm going to see the Olson elevator price, the discount price associated with all of these items. Then I need to go up here to my vendor and I need to pick Olson elevator as my vendor, and I'm ready and I'm out the door. So this is just a quick and dirty way to compare current vendor prices. I have to import the price. I have to go into my utilities and I have to make sure it picks up the price. And then I can come here to my price comparison. I do my price comparison and then I see which the low price ones are. If I want to mix and match and create a different purchase order, I can do that too. It's a bit more work, but if you're going to save significant dollars, it might be worth it for you to do that particular extra function right there. The other component that we'll take a look at here in just a moment is going to be my history. History tells me how many times have I bought that product in the past and what is the price that I actually paid. This usually comes in from power order based off of the previous purchase orders that I've written. So now not only can I compare my current price, I can see what my historical price is. And if I see things that don't make sense to me, I can address it with the vendor. Once our price has been applied, then we can go ahead and run a history report to see exactly what items we've bought in the past. And it's going to give you up to 15 different times that you've purchased that item. This assumes that you've bought it in the past by either manually keying in a purchase order or by bringing it in through power order. Now, power order is bringing in data from your vendor. Most of you guys are going to be using it. And so it's going to go through and it's going to show you the history of every time that you've bought it and the low historical price. Now, because I've just brought these items in, it's not going to show me a whole lot, but for your commodity type items where I do a price compare and look at my history, I have a tremendous amount of information to decide where I want to buy these items from. Usually your quick burn items, rec comes in for some commodity type items, you've got negotiated pricing. You're not going to take the time in order to do this price comparison or run it against the history. For things that really matter, gear fixture lighting, stuff like that. Again, you've got some limitations there as well, but in the grand scheme of things though, for the items that really matter, you can actually do a sophisticated amount of analysis here just in power purchase. So between the price compare, the history where it shows me where I've brought these items or I've bought these items in the past. Again, I've just been using an estimate. And so once I get real world data in here, we start to see a lot of power with this. So the main things that we've covered here today are the ability to import vendor pricing, how to update that vendor pricing, how to run the price compare, apply the best price into a purchase order, review the history, and then be able to publish out a fully priced PO. Let's also not mistake the fact that with the price compare, you can use the power of suggestion. So let's say I wanted to use waste management. I could apply the Olson elevator pricing and go in here and change my vendor to waste management because maybe they've got better delivery times and I can suggest the price. It's really interesting how often a CSR at a vendor will see, oh, well, this price is this, and they'll actually give you that discounted price. Doesn't work every time, and it is a Jedi mind trick, but sometimes it does work. And once I publish out the purchase order, then I can bring in my order acknowledgement and have that run again to update the final pricing with it. And then I can commit it into my ERP system. Again, different ERP systems have different processes. We have a series of videos on how to import into Vista, Spectrum, and Sage. A couple of other ERPs that we can import data in as well. And that's it. Thanks for spending some time with us.